Okay.
Okay, great. All right, Doug. So we're excited about being able to join the team here. So let us know what we have to do to be in compliance and how we can spread the word.
Perfect. I'll start sharing my screen here. Let me see. Is screen sharing
Okay.
available?
Nope, I'm gonna do that right now here. Make sure I got advanced screen sharing here. Okay. Do you have it? Okay.
Yes, perfect. All right. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna go over a few documents here. The ones I'll start with are all of the required documents. Then the rest are more suggestions for how to operate your apprenticeship program, your committee, your rules and regulations, and so forth. Those are things that we don't have full jurisdiction over, so it's merely just a suggestive. This is what most programs do in these situations.
Okay.
So first, I'm going to start off with our DAS apprenticeship checklist. So these are a list of the documents that you will need to keep on file for each apprentice, so that when you get to your evaluation point, this is the kind of stuff that they're going to be looking for. Now, this is not um, fully updated to modern times, and not everything fully applies. So I'll kind of go over through it bit by bit, and then feel free to jump in with any questions.
Okay.
When I say apprentice file, this was actually set up um, a long time ago. So everyone used to carry these binders of hard copies of all the documents, including this, and this would lead off the tab for each apprentice. Now, obviously, now everything can be kept electronically. So I suggest just having a folder for each apprentice that you can tag each document into. But the
Okay.
first one is the most important, and that's the DAS one. The DAS one is essentially your contract with the apprentice, between the apprentice, the program, and the state. It grants them their rights as an apprentice. It kind of lays out what the nuts and bolts of the program are, the occupation, and the labor law dictates that this has to be signed and uploaded to web registration when you have it within 30 days.
Okay.
So from the date that they sign it, you have 30 days to get them into our system. It used to be the older style was you would send me every DS1, and I would put it in. Now you don't have to ever send me one. You just have to keep it on file and then put that information into web registration, which we'll get to in a little bit here. But basically, you're going to fill out this information. You don't have to worry about the top boxes. So you're putting the apprentice information here. You're putting the information of the program, the RSI, and then sorry, the occupation and ONET code as well. And then if they have any previous credit, by law, an apprentice has to, no matter how much credit they have, to be considered an apprentice, they have to serve at least 6 months in one day. So that would only apply to people who have previous work experience or have previously done education that they can be credited towards the RSI.
Right.
Anyone other than that has to go the term of the apprenticeship, which I forget, but probably around 1 year. And they can only graduate 12.5% early from that date without prior credit.
Okay.
So essentially, that works out to just past 10 months. So that applies more to competency-based programs, especially like if they're just killing it, but they came in with no prior experience, then you can do the 12.5% rule and graduate them, just past 10 months.
Okay. So
Um,
my question, I have three people who have onboarded for the DOL, and they all came in with prior experience, so they're all competency based. How would I apply those three people to the DAS one? So I have three separate DAS for those three people or DOL. How?
right. So for those, if they've achieved a certain amount of competencies, I think it's set up as 7. So let's say they've achieved 3, then you can put in here 3 competencies, and then if they've done the RSI, you can credit them as much as they've done.
Okay.
If
What
they've
does
done
RSI stand for again?
oh, sorry, yeah, and it's RTI for DOL, so that's where it definitely gets confusing, but it's the education portion. So it's the classroom training aspect.
Okay. Okay. Got
So if let me pull this up real quick.
it.
So that's this 144 hours that's listed in the standards.
Okay. Got it.
All right, and then you'll put the date, sign it here. Um, Signature of chair or coordinator. So you can actually put your signatures on all of this. You don't have to worry about the apprenticeship consultant anymore, as long as you're keeping this on file. And then one last signature here. You will also put the employer name and address. All right. And then
Okay.
the back also has to be completed for reporting standards. This is demographic information. There are some things that they don't have to complete. It'll say at the bottom in parentheses voluntary. And if they do, it'll list the labor code that shows why they have to complete it. So they do have to put their education level, their ethnic background, but they don't have to necessarily put dependents, number of years of experience, and so forth. So you will need to collect that data, and then it will ask you when you enter them into the website. Since you've done DOL, I mean, it's web registration is very similar to Rapids. Unfortunately, the two systems don't talk together, so there's no way to enter them in one and it automatically puts them in the other. That's something that's slowly in the works, but moving at a government pace. So I wouldn't expect it to come anytime soon.
Okay.
But this is everything you'll need from the apprentice. And again, the big thing there is just hitting that 30-day mark of getting it uploaded there.
And
The
when does that
second
start
one,
from? When does that start from today, or from when we got? When does that clock start for us?
the 30 days,
Mhm.
that's from the time that the apprentice signs.
Okay.
And then next is a signed acknowledgement of rules and regulations. Rules and regulations is not something we have jurisdiction over, but every program should have it. That essentially lays out the rules that you are going to hold the apprentice to. Some of them are going to maybe be more of a HR lean in that with any trainings or allowed number of absences, unexcused absences, late, things like that. If you want to put it in the rule, it obviously just gives the program more to lean back on if they have to dismiss an apprentice. Then they've clearly seen the rules and regulations, they've broken them, they've signed it, they acknowledge that they received the rules and regs. So I have a little thing that I'll go over later about rules and regulations, but that is not something like a standard document from DAS or anything like that, because it's specific to the program and what the program sees fit to hold their apprentices accountable to.
Okay.
The next one, record of committee evaluations and apprentice wage advancements. Because your program has beginning wage and ending wage without an actual step in the middle, you don't have to really worry about the wage advancements. You just have to be able to track their wages. And if the committee itself performs an evaluation, then you would want to keep any of that on the apprentice file, as well as any evaluations done by the employer. So essentially, you want to have all documentation, again, from the employer, from the committee, so that if anything comes up, the more documentation you have to back up the reasons for a program making action, you have that there. The next one, tracking OJT hours by work process. That's only for time-based, where they have to track it by work process. So for a competency-based program, you're not held to that. So you just have to make sure that you're aware of the hours that apprentices are working. We have new funding that's coming available, or has come available, would be available to you. It's a reimbursement model. I don't know if you were able to sit in the AIF meeting, but
No, I didn't.
no problem. I can get you a ton of information on that. But essentially, any apprentices that you have in 2023, come springtime of 2024, you would be able to submit for reimbursement for costs of the program. It's $3,500 per apprentice per year, prorated to the month that they've been an active apprentice, and then an extra $1,000 for any completion during that year. And that's something we don't need to spend a ton of time on, because I'll get you information and we can go over that later. But that's gonna be more applicable when you have everything up and running, and then it comes to next year for the reimbursement. But that's something new that we just released this spring. We're the first state to do it in the country. So we're really excited about that. But it also will require you to put in the hours that an apprentice has worked. So that's why getting it kind of going from the beginning and tracking that is just going to make your life a whole lot easier come time to submit those forms.
Okay.
The next thing is tracking RSI hours. This doesn't have to, this depends on how you run your training and how you track it. Usually with certain classes, it's about 3 units a class or so forth. You have it broken down to your class being 144 hours. So however you track that, but able to show this apprentice has completed this much of their education portion, or this apprentice has completed all theirs, and we have the 144 hours tracked here. But it's not something that, you need to have necessarily broken down. They attended today for 2 hours. Again, every program has it set up differently. If the LEA is administering it, then that's kind of something that the program will work out with the LEA as how they'll provide those hours.
Okay.
The next thing, evidence of grades or test results. This kind of goes back to rules and regulations. If you have it set up in your rules and regulations that they need to receive a certain grade, not just pass or fail, then you need evidence of the grades that they're receiving. If they have to do a certain test and pass it, then you have to have documentation of them passing that test. So again,
Who
this
sets
kind
those
of
standards for the grade that they have to, minimally pass?
that's entirely up to the program. Like I have programs that set it up as a C or better, and other programs that it's simply a pass fail. So it's not even a letter grade. So it depends on how the program wants to establish that.
Okay.
And then next thing, any record of disciplinary actions, complaints, or appeals, as well as any cancellations. We'll get into that form soon here. But similar, anything in their HR file would essentially be in their apprentice file, right? If they are terminated, they have the right to appeal any cancellation of their apprenticeship once they're out of their probation period. So the more documentation a program has on hand to show why the apprentice was terminated is just going to benefit the program more. And then the last thing, final evaluation and request for completion and certificate. There's no completion certificate request anymore. It used to be a form you had to fill out. You don't have to do that anymore. That's all just done through web registration. The final evaluation will be your competency checklist. So you have your competency set. So it's going to be showing, yes, they completed all of the competencies, and that's why they're graduating. All right.
Okay.
Any questions about the checklist?
No. Okay. So the person who has administered all of the apprentices up to this point for the DOL just joined the call. Terrence, are you capable of unmuting and asking Doug, because there's one document that I think you should see if we can go back to it. Actually, Doug, if you can, the registration form,
Sure.
yeah. So Terrence, this is the DS's apprenticeship agreement that everybody from the DOL has to sign. And
Okay.
so that's what we're going to be pulling everybody over. This is the new agreement. So this is actually a Excel spreadsheet. And
Yep.
so yeah. And was there a second form after this apprenticeship agreement, Doug?
This just has a tab that goes to the back of it with the demographics information. And then I have 2 more forms. One is the DAS 752. This is the employer agreement with a program. So anyone who signs on to be an employer is going to fill this out. You'll want to Make sure that this program sponsor is checked if the program's going to be in charge of the record keeping for the apprentices. Why that's big is if the employer is checked and you end up having multiple employers, each one is going to receive an individual evaluation, because the evaluation's point is to check on making sure the record keeping is good. So if different places are doing record keeping, then each one needs to be evaluated. Then here you would just enter the information of the employer, whether it's a new employer, any revisions that they're making to work processes or competencies you'd put in here. So that would be standards would be followed as written, or we're going to change anything like the probationary period or so forth. Just understand the probation period you're still stuck to. It can't be greater than 25% of the length of the program.
Okay.
Then you're going to put their wage schedule. Your guys' wage schedule that you set up in your standards was $15.50 to meet the new minimum wage for the starting wage, and $20 upon completion. This is the floor. So anything that's set in your standards is considered the floor as far as what you're contractually held to. So if you run into an employer that wants to pay a starting wage of $17.50 or so forth, then that's definitely fine. Like you just have to make sure you meet that minimum, which you're starting at minimum wage, so that won't be a trouble there. That's another thing that would qualify you, that will need to qualify for the AIF funding.
Okay. Right. And Terrence, there's a new set of funding. Well, not set, AIF funding program.
Yeah, the reimbursement funding.
Well, no, it's actually some additional funding. I guess, Doug, is the AIF kind of in addition to the reimbursement, or is it included?
AIF is reimbursement funding.
Right. So but the funding that you talked about, the workshop that we didn't sit in on, that's what I wanted Terrence to know about.
Right.
Right. So what workshop would that be? When could we, or is it kind of something archived?
I'll send you guys the link to all the information. You can go back and watch the rollout meeting that took place about 2.5 weeks ago. It has all the information there. Obviously, again, people are starting to submit right now, but that's only for 2022 active apprentices. So now we're in the 2023 phase. So you guys would be looking to get everything up and running and then be able to submit by 2024. The huge benefit of this is it's not a grant. It's not an application. It is based on reimbursement and formula funding. So if you qualify, and you will receive the money.
Yeah, it's reimbursement though, right? So basically, we would have had to have paid the apprentice. Now, to your point, if we did pay any apprentices in 2022, I did see that there was a window to submit that for reimbursement until I think the window's in May to July, something like that.
Well, to be clear, the program was not approved in 2022. So as far as DAS is concerned, you haven't had an active apprentice yet.
Okay, understood. So that would only apply to any apprentices we start paying now, and then being able to be reimbursed in spring of next year.
Correct. And to be clear, when we talk about reimbursement, one thing that is not part of that is wages. So reimbursement is for the cost of the program that the program incurs in running an apprenticeship program, marketing, salaries, rollout, administration, but not wages. That's one thing that typically in all of our funding, not just through DAS, but most of it, they'll do most everything but pretty much wages.
Got it. So we paid apprentices, that wouldn't be there. But if there were any expenses that we paid someone else, we paid a cameraman, we paid people to do marketing for us, any of those kind of things, those are the things that would apply.
Yes, exactly.
Right. And so based on the calendar starting when we get these guys registered, when would we be eligible for AIF funding? 2023, you said, or 2024?
So 2024 is when, like early spring 2024 is when we would open up the next window to submit for 2023 apprentices.
Okay.
So anything you spend in 2023, you apply and get reimbursed in spring of 2024.
Exactly.
Understood.
Okay. Got it.
All right. Any questions about the 752? It also has instructions on the other tab
Yeah.
as well. Perfect. So then the next document I'm going to take you through is the request for canceling an apprentice. So this is any apprentice that is past their probation period. So for a 1-year program, that's 3 months. So anytime they're past that 3 months and you guys have to cancel an apprentice with cause, you would want to fill out one of these forms and submit it to me. If the apprentice quits or just falls off and starts ghosting the program, which to be honest, I run into quite a bit, that is not a cancellation of the agreement. That's the apprentice canceling the agreement. So it's different from that standpoint. So this is only for letting an apprentice go with cause. You would want to have one of these forms submitted to me so that, again, they have rights to go and appeal their termination. So that just puts us kind of prepared to respond and deal with any of those appeals. It doesn't happen a lot, but you always want to make sure you're covered as a program as far as documentation.
Got it.
And this is very straightforward here, so not too much to it. The next form is our web registration form. This is the only thing that you'll really want to get on right away and get back to me so that we guys can get you set up with usernames and passwords. You're allowed up to 4 users. I've already filled in kind of the basic information, so you just need to fill out who would have access to input apprentices into the system. We also have kind of new reporting there because of the AIF funding, so you're able to have access to that as well.
This is the mirror of the DOL system, right? So the same thing when I go to the DOL.gov
exactly
system.
like this is the Rapids for DAS version.
Got it.
Yeah. So in some ways it's a little easier. In some ways it's a little more difficult. From what I hear. So I'll let you decide. But yes, this is the basic form that you need to get back. You can email it back to me, or you can just email it to this website or this email address here, and they'll typically respond to you in a few days. They'll send you, all of your login information as well as a user guide to get set up and going.
Got it. And you do this in addition to the agreement that has to be signed by the apprentice, right?
So technically you would take that agreement and then enter all the information from the agreement into this.
Okay.
And then it will ask additional information, but you won't have some of that information yet. So not everything's required. It might ask hours, apprentice wage, LEA. So whatever isn't established yet, that just comes back to the AIF funding and the information you'd need for that period. But again, that's under the presumption that they're already up and running and working. So you can go back and enter any information you need to.
Got it.
And then the big thing, Terrence, was that when you have web registration access, whenever you have a DAS-1 signed, from the date that an apprentice signs it, you have 30 days to get them into the system. After that, it won't allow you to go back any farther than 30 days. So let's say something falls off the desk and 2 months later, you realize, oh, I didn't put this apprentice in. And so instead of putting them in at the beginning of April, we don't get them in until the beginning of June.
Yeah.
In that situation, you would go back as far as you can, 30 days, which is the beginning of May. And then you would give them 1 month's credit for whatever they've done previously.
Got it. So this has to start pretty much 30 days from the time that we actually get them in the program and going.
Yeah, exactly. You wanna get them in as quickly as possible once they sign that, and then again you can go back and put in more information when you need to, but to get them in within that window is very important.
Got it. Understood.
Okay.
All right. So that is actually the gist of all the documentation that's required. So everything else that I'm gonna kind of go over is more just kind of suggestive of things that you guys can think of. when operating the program. The first one is just that apprentice orientation. You guys have already brought on apprentices, so you kind of already have this set up. So I just include this in all the onboarding. So feel free to take anything from it that you need, but you know, now that you're up and running, you're probably pretty good there. But this is just the general things that you would want to go over with the apprentice when doing the orientation. One, making sure they do that DAS 1 and go over the rules and regulations. Make sure that they're aware of the competencies that they have to achieve, the RSI element of the program, and then their pay process as well as their evaluation process. So I won't spend any more time there. The next thing I included for rules and regs is this is a checklist, again, very generic, but a checklist of the types of items that people put into their rules and regulations. So feel free to, you know, that just kind of covers the general areas and then you get to define what you want, but the rules and regulations is for the program. So we have no jurisdiction over that. It's just important that every program kind of establishes the rules that they're going to hold those apprentices to. Similarly, evaluation sample, you guys have already had apprentices. So, you know, you have your competency checklist as well as, you know, any evaluations that you do. You could set it up like something like this, but you would want to just make sure if you perform an evaluation that you keep it on file. And then the last one is just for your committee meetings. We always suggest for committees to use the Roberts Rule of Order for how they operate the committee. So this just kind of breaks down with you guys how that's run, calling votes, and so forth. Again, with a program, we recommend when you start off your committee's meeting, at least, if not monthly, every other month, before you kind of got things, you know, up and running, and then you're going probably quarterly. We recommend that every program meets, you know, ideally at least quarterly, but we want to make sure that programs are addressing any apprentice issues at, you know, no less than semi-annually. So again, that's totally up to you guys. As far as it comes with DAS's jurisdiction, we just ensure that the items that need to be addressed are being addressed, but not holding you to you need to meet every month or anything like that. But when you do have a meeting, let me know, because I definitely plan to attend any committee meeting and serve as an advisor to the program in any way that I can help.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. And kind of as far as everything goes, like that's the nuts and bolts of everything with DAS. The big things, again, DAS 1 for any sign up. You guys hold on to those forms, keep a copy of it in the apprentice file, and then make sure it's uploaded in 30 days. DAS 5 for any cancellation past probation period with cause, and then the 752. And similarly, the 752 is not something you have to send to me. It's information that you will upload into web registration and then just need to have a copy on file.
Got it.
Okay. Guys, any questions, comments? And the interesting thing for this exercise is that, again, Mariah is just onboarded for the DOL, but I want her to kind of understand the processes of, you know, onboarding and basically all of the things that we've had to do to get an apprenticeship program, because at some point, I think that she may be a candidate for having an apprenticeship program down the road herself. She has leadership skills and training that she's undergoing right now. So I want her to be able to take a snapshot of everything that we're doing here by helping us administrating.
Excellent.
And she's getting we owe it dollars for her apprenticeship.
Perfect. Terrific.
Will this recording be posted?
Well, I'm just recording it for us. This is our recording, so just only for our review. So I will send you guys you and Terrence and Doug, if you want, I'll send a recording of this, because we'll have to go, you know, step by step in getting you more familiar with the processes, and again, just doing it. Just signing everybody up. You, JP, and Damone.
Mhm.
No, thank you.
Okay.
Perfect. And
Okay.
probably the biggest thing I want to convey is, my job here is to assist you guys in running this program in any way that I can. So if you have any questions, please reach out. I'll get back to you right away, and provide you an answer or at least a link to an answer. But I'm here to help the program. So I'm excited about this program. I think it's going to do some great things. So let me help in any way I can.
And the question, where are you based?
I'm based Southern California, kind of Inland Empire, Eastvale.
Okay. Okay. One of the things that we had talked to Ha and another advisor about, we're interested in doing some networking and sharing with other NGOs and CBOs about what we're doing, who seem to have some interest, but just are a little slow on the draw from my standpoint in getting to the first step. So we would like to actually conduct an orientation or an introduction to Apprenticeship 101. Some of these people would possibly be in the same space, AME with us, but some other sectors also. Would you be the person that we would reach out to explain some of the nuts and bolts of?
You can definitely reach out to me. I would probably loop in Ha in those situations as well. So we're kind of divided up into two teams. She's on the partnership team, so she's in charge of getting new programs up and running. They're the presenters, almost salespeople, if you will. And then I'm more on the writing the standards, getting the standards through, and then administering the program management aspect. So again, I'm happy to help in any way. Definitely don't mind hopping on and explaining with a potential employer, things like that, the benefits of apprenticeships, but I'd also probably loop in Han in those situations.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking now, with introduction of it, maybe it's done in phases. Maybe, HOD introduces it, and then if people are interested, who want to come back, they can get more information through you in a phase way of making sure
Yeah.
that they're not only interested, but they're qualified. And that's what
Sure.
HOD could do, is to try and talk about, all of those things from A to Z as to who would benefit and who would qualify for putting such a program together, especially if they're already existing, community-based or NGO or after-school program that would qualify.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And one last question: could a university or accredited school become an apprenticeship program?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of programs that are run by the LEAs, the local education agency, especially community colleges. They run a lot of their own programs. When it goes to a university, it gets a little trickier from the tuition aspect because there's a lot of technicalities behind it. Apprentices can't be charged tuition for Cal State and UC apprentices. They technically can be if they've already been enrolled in the school and are going. And then the tuition is almost understood in that sense. So it depends. There's a lot of gray area in that. But typically, especially with community colleges, adult education, high school districts, things like that, a lot of them operate their own programs.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys have many current high schools that are running a program?
We let me think. We had one in Central California about 4 years ago, was the first one to ever start. And now we're seeing major increases because of our growth in youth and pre-apprenticeship. So typically with pre-apprenticeship, that's often driven in large part by the high schools because they're the ones that are going to administer the education portion. And for pre-apprenticeship, it pretty much just is the education portion. So that's why the high schools take a
Yeah,
bigger
and I'm pretty familiar with creating kind of linkages to the pre-apprenticeship programs who are no structure, or not the kind of same structure as the apprenticeship program, but I'm trying to market to high schools, potentially high schools who have a lot more administrative capacity and are doing more structured things, like dual enrollment, that are really focusing on people getting certifications.
Right.
And those are the things I'm going to be talking to a group on April 18th at Hamilton High School in West Los Angeles about taking on a role of working with us. But I would rather them be a partner as an apprenticeship program, because they would do all the work and then make us kind of a partner in helping to create employment for their pipeline. Because I
Right.
don't want to do all this work. To
Yeah.
tell you the truth, if we can find people who can do it, and they get the incentive of the reimbursement, but we get the talent.
Mhm.
So that's kind of what
Absolutely.
I'm looking at. Okay.
For sure.
Any questions, suggestions, or comments, guys, before we let Doug go?
Just one last question. So, Doug, you were saying as there are prospective employers, that's a place to engage you in that 752. So, if employers have questions on that, that'd be a time to come to you to make sure we can explain their piece.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, understood.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you, guys. Have a good rest of
All
your
right.
day.
Yeah,
All
it's
right.
a pleasure meeting you. Have a good one.
All right, now. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Hey, Karen.